We are learning new details today of how the federal government plans to implement its carbon tax. The CBC's Margot McDermott is in Ottawa and she joins us now. So Margot, what are we hearing about the new system?
Well, you'll remember that the government has came out last year and said it was going to put a carbon levy, or essentially a price on carbon pollution, anywhere from $10 a ton to $50 a ton, ramping up over the next 5 years. Well, what we got today was the actual draft law, or the draft legislation, with the intimate details, like piles of details about how all of this will work. And so essentially, to boil it all down, the government's taking what it's called, and we're going to hear a lot more about this, it's called an output-based system. In other words, what goes up into the air will be taxed by the government. And so essentially what they're going to do is they're going to take each sector, everything from the oil and gas sector, pulp and paper, mining, even the food processing sector, and they're going to look at each one of those sectors, average the amount of energy used in each sector. So for example, let's say in the oil industry, how much energy is used to produce a barrel of oil? So if a company goes over the average use of energy, they would have to pay a carbon levy. But if the company uses less energy than the average for its sector, let's say to produce that barrel of oil, they would actually get a credit that they could actually sell for money. So that's essentially the way the government is approaching this. And what they're going to do is they're obviously consulting with the public over the next couple of months, but they're also probably going to take the rest of this year to go through each sector and finalize the average of each sector and how much energy is the average. And that will sort of be the baseline that they'll use for this new carbon pricing system.
Okay, so this is a federal plan. How is it going to work out on a provincial level?
Well, it's important to realize that this is what they call the federal backstop. A lot of jargon, believe me. But this is the federal system that will be applied to provinces that do not have or will not put in place their own carbon pricing system. So, for example, 80% of the population is already covered by a carbon price of some sort. BC, Alberta, Ontario, Quebec, they all have carbon pricing systems that are in place and that will stay in place. But they have to stay in line and sort of at the same standard as the federal system. So they will have to continue to improve to keep in line with the federal system. But other provinces, Saskatchewan is fighting this tooth and nail. Manitoba is bringing in a carbon pricing system, but it's much smaller than what the feds would like. Some of the Atlantic provinces don't have a system in place at all, and neither do the territories. So most of those will probably adopt the federal system or be forced to use the federal system if they don't have something in place by the end of this year.
All right. Thanks so much, Margot. That's the CBC's Margot McDermott in Ottawa.